We are back on The Real News. TheRealNewsRadio.com is the website. You're here with Farron and Brian. We got a lot of news we want to cover, and this is news that I have not seen in the mainstream press this week that everyone needs to be aware of. We've talked a lot since we've started last March about the seriousness of the peril of the dollar. And, of course, our collapsing economy by design by the Federal Reserve and the International Banking Crime Syndicate. This was Reuters this past week, July 8th, 2009. You could go to Reuters, their website, and the title of it is Replacing the Dollar as Reserve Currency, something we've spoke to Virginia Fox about, something we've been saying for over a year. We saw on the horizon something that had to happen. This and the next couple of stories everyone needs to be aware of. And I'm going to read this verbatim. The U.S. dollar is in the line of fire as leaders from the largest developed and developing countries gather in Italy for talks as China pushes for debate on an eventual shift to a new global reserve currency. Sources have said the dollar's role probably will not be included in the final communique of G8 meeting. Even if it does not rate a mention, the language used would likely be extremely general to avoid destabilizing financial markets. Still, the symbolic importance would be immense, as it would underscore the determination of emerging economies who will also be present in Italy for the talks to win greater say in the global financial system and over time to reduce their dependence on the U.S. currency. Now, we have stated here, we've had different guests and experts on, the world drops the dollar as the world reserve currency. Prices at your local Walmart are likely to skyrocket. It is waiting in the wings. They are openly discussing it now, and I wanted to report this information before I went into the second information. And as everyone knows, this week the G8 were meeting, and as they were meeting, and hadn't seen this anywhere, anyone that's seen this in the mainstream press, I'd like to know it, because this is big news. President Medvedev shows off sample coin of new world currency at the G8. Now, this was reported by Bloomberg. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg reporting. July 10th, 2009, and we'll read it verbatim. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev illustrated his call for a supranational currency to replace the dollar by pulling from his pocket a sample coin of a united future world currency. Here it is, Medvedev told reporters in Italy after a summit of the group of 8 nations. You can see it and touch it. The coin, which bears the words "Unity in Diversity," was minted in Belgium and presented to the heads of the G8 delegations, Medvedev said. The question of a supranational currency concerns everyone now, even the mints, Medvedev said. The test coin means they are getting ready. I think it's a good sign that we understand how interdependent we are. I'd like to also comment that the coin saying unity out of diversity is no different than saying order out of chaos. If anyone knows where that comes from, you might want to look into it. But here again, they are setting the stage. Our economy was imploded by design, problem, reaction, solution, and the solution is going to be a new world currency, more control of financial powers, and the looting of the American people, which we have witnessed. I think even the most simpleton can put the news together in the last 9 months that the American people have been looted to some tune of $12 trillion with absolutely no accountability, absolutely no transparency. And here this very week, Medvedev showing a sample coin of a new world currency, unity out of diversity. Brian, you'd like to comment on that?
Well, this was also reported in the Telegraph UK. China criticizes dollar. Dai Bengao, who's standing in for Chinese President Hu Jintao at the G8 meeting, raised questions over the dominant role of the dollar as the world reserve currency. We should have a better system for reserve currency issuance and regulation, he said, so that we can maintain relative stability of major reserve currency exchange rates and promote a diversified and rational international reserve currency system. While he did not single out the dollar, Mr. Dai was clearly calling for the world to diversify its reserve currency system and stabilize exchange rates among leading currencies. Of course, China's the largest holder of dollars in the world, so certainly they are quite concerned about us printing trillions out of thin air.
Yes, and exactly what we're doing. I mean, the Chinese can't be completely dumb. They see the rest of the world sees the dollar's demise. That's why they're trying to abandon it with the haste. Only the people in America seem to be unaware of exactly what's going on. And here we're reporting, this is not Alex Jones, this is not some individual, this is Reuters, Bloomberg. They're reporting what has actually transpired this past week, but you don't see this on Sean Hannity. You don't see this on CNN, the Control News Network. They're keeping this information suppressed deliberately from the American people because the stage is being set right in front of you. And if things continue like this apparently is, one day we're going to see the end of the dollar. Let's all remember that under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he done away with the dollar, redesigned it, and it no longer could be exchanged at a bank for gold and silver. It became a complete fiat currency, and that's what we have today. Also, this past week, reported by Reuters, July 7th, 2009, Pope calls for world political authority. That's the headline of this story. Pope Benedict on Tuesday called for a world political authority to manage the global economy and for more government regulation of national economies to pull the world out of the current crisis and avoid a repeat. The Pope called for a rethink of the way the world economy is run and came in new which touched on a number of social issues, but whose main connecting thread was how the current crisis has affected both the rich and the poor. So we've got the Pope this very week calling for a world political authority, which sounds a whole lot to me like a new world order, a global government. The Pope is not calling for national sovereignty. He's calling for world political authority.
Coincidence, Obama was meeting with him, was it yesterday?
He was meeting with the Pope yesterday. He's been making the rounds quite around the world. I don't know exactly what's coming out of it, other than it looks to me like they are rapidly approaching some kind of a global financial restructuring, and we're seeing that in the demise of the dollar, which may well be right on the horizon. Well, we've got just a couple more minutes in this segment while we're on economic news. This past week, Wall Street Journal. Banks don't want California's IOUs. We've been reporting on the situation in California. A group of the biggest U.S. banks said they would stop accepting California's IOUs on Friday, adding pressure on the state to close its $26.3 billion annual budget gap. The development is the latest twist in California's struggle to deal with the effects of the recession. After state leaders failed to agree on budget solution last week, California began issuing IOUs, or individual registered warrants, to hundreds of thousands of creditors. State Controller John Chang said that without IOUs, California would run out of cash by July's end. When you're issuing IOUs, aren't you out of cash? So here again, we're reporting California is now issuing IOUs. I know the Lion Television is telling people we're at the bottom of this thing and things are starting to get better, but if you look at the news, Brian, we can't say that, can we?
If you really look at the news, it paints an entirely different and very bleak picture.
Exactly. So we wanted to get that information in this hour because what transpired this past week with regards to the economy, some of the news that came out, it is very distressing, because if they drop if the dollar totally implodes and becomes a complete fiat currency, we're going to see drastic changes in our economy, and it's all going to be for the worst, and it looks like they're setting the stage right now. We're going to continue with the news next segment.